"Ma'am, please come to my office alone. And don't tell your daughter you're coming." The insurance agent's voice cracked just enough to make my stomach drop. It was 7:04 in the morning. I was standing in my kitchen, still in my robe, the kettle screaming on the stove because I'd forgotten about it. People don't make calls like that before sunrise, unless something is already burning. "What is this about?" I asked. There was a pause. Too long. Then, quietly, "I can't explain over the phone. But you need to see this with your own eyes." I turned the stove off and leaned against the counter. My hand was shaking now, though I hadn't moved. "This is about the policy, isn't it?" I said. "The one my husband took out." Another pause. "Yes," he said. "And your daughter?" That was when I knew I needed to go. "My name is Eleanor Brooks, and I'm 64 years old. I've buried a husband, raised 2 children, and lived long enough to know when someone is trying to protect you from the truth. Or protect themselves. I didn't call my daughter. I didn't even finish my coffee. I drove straight to the insurance office on the other side of town. The sky still gray, the streets half asleep. The whole way there, my mind kept circling the same thought. Why would an insurance agent tell a mother to hide something from her own child? The building was quiet when I arrived. No waiting room chatter. No cheerful morning greetings. The agent Mark was already standing at the door, scanning the hallway like he was afraid someone might see us together. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said, ushering me inside and closing the door behind us. He looked terrible. Mark was usually polished pressed suit, confident smile. The kind of man who explained numbers like bedtime stories. That morning, his tie was loose, his eyes red. "Before I show you anything," he said, lowering his voice, "I need you to promise me something." I sat down slowly. "That depends. Please don't confront your daughter yet," he said. "And whatever you do, don't call the police. Not today." My chest tightened. "You're asking a lot," I said. "I know," he replied. "But once you see the paperwork, you'll understand why timing matters." He reached into a folder on his desk and slid it toward me. "These are the payout records from your late husband's life insurance policy," he said. "The policy that was finalized last month." I frowned. "The payout was supposed to go into my account." He nodded. "That's what the policy states." Then he turned the folder around. The numbers didn't make sense. There were transfers I didn't recognize. Dates I didn't authorize. And then I saw it clear as day. Stamped and signed at the bottom of the payout authorization form. A signature. Not mine. Not my husband's. His. I stared at the paperwork until the numbers blurred. "That's not possible," I said finally. "My daughter doesn't have access to that account. She wouldn't even know where to begin." Mark didn't interrupt me. He let the silence stretch, the way professionals do when they know the truth is about to land. "Whether you're ready or not, the account isn't in her name," he said carefully. "Not directly." I looked up. "Then whose is it?" He turned his computer screen toward me. "It's a holding account. A temporary distribution account that was set up during the policy review process. That still doesn't explain why the money didn't come to me. It explains how it could be redirected," he replied. He clicked through a series of documents, each one more damning than the last. Authorization forms. Digital approvals. Timestamps. "And before you ask," he said, "no, these weren't clerical errors. They were deliberate." My throat went dry. "Who authorized them?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pointed to the bottom of the screen. "There," he said. "That approval request was initiated from an IP address registered to your daughter's home." I felt something cold move through my chest. "You're saying she logged in as me?" I asked. "I'm saying someone used your credentials," he replied. "Someone who knew enough about the policy to know exactly where to look." I pushed the folder away, suddenly unable to breathe properly. "She helped me with emails sometimes. After her father died, She said it was easier that way. Mark nodded slowly. That's usually how this starts. I didn't like the sound of that. Starts how? I asked. With access, he said, then familiarity, then opportunity. I stood up and began pacing the small office. My hands felt numb. My daughter, my only daughter, had moved back closer to me 2 years ago, insisting she wanted to help more as I got older. She handled my online bills, my insurance reminders. Even sat beside me when we reviewed the policy last year. You should simplify things, Mom, she'd said. It's safer if I help. Safer? Why didn't you catch this sooner? I asked sharply, turning back to him. Mark flinched. Because the transactions were structured to look routine. Small delays. Legitimate routing codes. Whoever did this understood the system. I stopped pacing. But your signature, I said. That's what I don't understand. Why is your asterisk name on the payout papers? His jaw tightened. Because someone forged it, he said. Or copied it. I felt sick. How long have you known? I asked. He hesitated. I noticed irregularities 3 weeks ago. I started an internal review. But this morning, I got a notification from compliance. About what? That the matter is being escalated, he said. And that if it's confirmed as fraud, I'll be legally required to report it. My heart pounded. To whom? The insurance board, he said. And possibly law enforcement. I sank back into the chair. And my daughter? I asked. If the funds were intentionally diverted, he said carefully, she could be facing serious charges. I closed my eyes. Images flooded my mind: family dinners, her checking on me, the way she'd hugged me just last night and said, "Don't worry, Mom, I've got everything handled." Handled? Why are you telling me before you report it? I asked quietly. Mark leaned forward. Because once I do, there's no controlling how this unfolds. And because your name is on some of these documents too. I opened my eyes. What do you mean? There are authorizations, he said, that appear to show you approved the transfers. My pulse thundered in my ears. I never signed anything like that. I believe you, he said, but someone is making it look otherwise. The room went very still. Someone wasn't just stealing money, they were building a story. And somehow, without my knowing, I was already part of it. I drove home in a fog. I don't remember the traffic lights. I don't remember the radio. I only remember gripping the steering wheel so tightly my fingers ached. Replaying Mark's last sentence over and over. Someone is making it look otherwise. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sky had brightened. The neighborhood waking up like nothing in my world had shifted. A delivery truck rumbled past. A woman jogged by with her dog. Normal life carried on while mine quietly cracked in half. Inside, I set my purse down and didn't move for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I spread the copies Mark had given me across my dining table. Every page told the same story. Transfers, approvals, dates. That lined up perfectly with moments my daughter had been helping me. One document in particular made my stomach drop: a digital authorization form bearing my name, my address, even my phone number, and a signature that looked disturbingly close to mine. I traced it with my finger. Too smooth, too confident. Not how my hand shakes now. I was reaching for my phone to call my daughter when I noticed something strange. On one of the payout forms, beneath the approval line, there was a small notation, almost an afterthought. Secondary verification completed. Below it were 2 initials. Mr. They weren't my daughter's. They weren't mine. I flipped through the pages again, faster now. There they were on several documents. Always in the same place. Always following the primary authorization. Mr. My heart started pounding. I knew those initials. They belonged to Michael Reeves, the senior claims reviewer who'd joined Mark during our last policy meeting. The one who'd smiled politely, shaken my hand, and said, Your daughter is very organized. You're lucky to have her. I stood up so fast, my chair scraped loudly across the floor. Why would a claims reviewer be verifying transfers into a private account? My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. I answered. Mrs. Brooks, a woman said, professional and clipped. This is Detective Laura Chen with the State Insurance Fraud Unit. I need you to come in today to answer a few questions. Regarding your husband's life insurance payout. My mouth went dry. How did you? We've been reviewing the case for several weeks, she said. And this morning, new information came to light. What information? I asked. There was a pause. Records indicating your involvement in the redirection of funds. The room tilted. That's not possible, I said. I'm the victim here. That's what we need to determine, she replied. Ma'am, if you don't come in voluntarily, I'll have to issue a warrant. The call ended before I could respond. I stood there staring at my phone, then back down at the paperwork. My daughter's access. Mark's signature. Michael Reeves' initials. And now the police saying I was involved. Someone was lying. Someone was manipulating the paper trail. And suddenly, the question wasn't just what happened to the money. It was who wanted me to take the fall. I looked down again at the documents, and this time I noticed something I'd missed before. A sticky note, tucked beneath one of the forms, in Mark's familiar handwriting. Just for words. Check Michael's private accounts. My breath caught. Before I could think better of it, I picked up my phone and called my son. Can you come over? I said the moment he answered. Alone. Don't tell your sister. There was a pause on the line. Mom, he said slowly, you're scaring me. I know, I replied. But if I don't act now, this is going to get much worse. And as I hung up, one truth settled in with chilling clarity. This wasn't a simple case of betrayal. It was a setup. My son arrived in less than 20 minutes. That alone told me how serious my voice must have sounded. He didn't knock. He opened the door with his spare key. His face tight with concern. Eyes already scanning the room like he expected to see damage. Mom, he called. What's going on? In here, I said. He stepped into the dining room and stopped short. The table was still covered in paperwork, bank statements, payout forms, authorization records. He didn't touch anything at first. Just looked. What is all this? He asked quietly. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down and listen carefully. He sat. I told him everything. The 7 a.m. call, the insurance office, the redirected payout, the forged approvals. The detective's call. I watched his face as the story unfolded, confusion giving way to disbelief. Then something darker. This doesn't make sense, he said when I finished. Why would they involve you? Because I'm the cleanest name in this whole mess, I replied. A grieving widow. No criminal history. If someone needed a fall person, it would be me. He swallowed hard. And my sister, he asked. Do you think she... I think she knows something, I said carefully. I don't know how much. But she had access. And someone is using that. I slid the sticky note across the table. Asterisk, asterisk, check Michael's private accounts. Asterisk, asterisk. He frowned. Who's Michael? The claims reviewer, I said. The one who sat in on the policy meeting. His expression tightened. And you think he's involved? I think his initials show up on every transfer that didn't belong, I said. And I think he's more than a reviewer. My son ran a hand through his hair. Mom, this is insurance fraud. Federal level stuff. I know. You can't just go digging into people's accounts. I'm already being accused, I said quietly. If I sit still, I'll be arrested before sunset. He didn't argue with that. Instead, he looked at the papers again. Slower this time. What exactly did Mark say about Michael? That he told me to check his private accounts? I replied. And that he believes the fraud didn't start with my daughter. My son leaned back. Then why doesn't Mark go to the police? Because his signature is already on the paperwork, I said. Even if it was forged, it makes him look complicit. The room fell silent. Finally, my son spoke. Michael Reeves lives about 15 minutes from here. I looked up sharply. How do you know that? He helped me file a claim last year, he said. Gave me his card. I remember the address. My pulse quickened. Does he work from home? Yes, he said slowly. Why? I stood up. Because I want to know what kind of operation someone runs when they think no one's watching. He stared at me. Mom, you're not suggesting. I'm suggesting we confirm whether this man is worth being afraid of. I said, nothing more. This could backfire, he warned. I know, I said. But right now, I'm already cornered. He hesitated, then nodded once. If we do this, we do it carefully. We gathered the papers into a single folder. I grabbed my coat. As we headed for the door, my phone buzzed again. A text message from an unknown number. Mrs. Brooks, you need to stop asking questions. I looked at my son. They already know, I said. And that's when I realized. We weren't investigating quietly anymore. We were being watched. We didn't drive straight to Michael Reeves' house. That would have been reckless. Instead, my son circled the neighborhood once. Then parked 2 streets away, just far enough not to draw attention. The morning had fully arrived now. Trash cans, at the curb. Sprinklers ticking on, a man washing his car like it was any other ordinary day. Nothing about the place screamed crime. That was what worried me most. Michael's house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. Clean lawn, new paint, black SUV in the driveway. The kind of house that looked carefully curated to inspire trust. He lives alone, my son said quietly. Divorced. No kids. That makes it easier, I replied. And lonelier. We didn't go to the door. We walked slowly, casually, like neighbors out for fresh air. As we passed the house, I noticed something immediately. 3 security cameras. 1 above the garage. 1 near the front door. 1 tucked under the eaves facing the side yard. He's cautious, I murmured. Or paranoid. We reached the corner and stopped. My son pulled out his phone and pretended to scroll. His eyes flicking back toward the house. Mom, he said under his breath, there's someone inside. How can you tell? Look at the office window, he said. 2nd floor. The lights on. Curtains half open. I followed his gaze. There he was. Michael Reeves sat at a desk facing 2 monitors, his posture relaxed, almost smug, papers spread out. A coffee mug beside him. On one screen, I could see rows of numbers. On the other, bank accounts. My heart started pounding. That's not insurance software, my son whispered. I work in finance. That's personal banking. We kept walking. Neither of us spoke until we were back in the car. That's enough to tell me one thing, I said as I buckled my seatbelt. What's that? He's not worried, I replied. Which means he thinks he's untouchable. My phone buzzed again. Another message. You're making this worse. No name, no number. I typed back before I could stop myself. Then stop lying. The reply came almost instantly. Last warning. I turned my phone face down. They're trying to scare you, my son said. It's working, I replied. But not the way they think. We drove back toward my house in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, a car I didn't recognize was parked across the street. Engine running. Tinted windows. Don't look, my son muttered. Just act normal. I unlocked the door, my pulse loud in my ears. Inside, I locked it behind us. I don't think this ends with Michael, I said quietly. He's too comfortable to clean. You think there's someone above him? I think there always is, I replied. As if on cue, my phone rang. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was my daughter. I stared at her name on the screen, my stomach twisting. What do I do? My son asked softly. I took a breath. I answer, I said, and I listen. I tapped the screen. Mom, my daughter's voice came through, light but strained. Why is an insurance investigator asking me questions about Dad's policy? I closed my eyes. Because now, she was in it too. And whatever game was being played, it was moving faster than I'd expected. Who's asking you questions? I said, keeping my voice calm. My daughter hesitated. A woman from compliance. She said it was routine, but, Mom, she asked me why the payout didn't go directly to you. My grip tightened on the phone. And what did you say? I asked. That you asked me to help manage things, she replied. That I was just assisting with paperwork. Is that wrong? I looked at my son. His jaw was clenched. No, I said carefully. It's not wrong. But it's not the whole truth either. There was a pause on the line. Mom, what's going on? I could hear the edge now. The fear she was trying to hide. I need you to listen to me, I said, and I need you to do exactly what I say next. Okay, she whispered. Do not speak to anyone else about the policy, I said. Not investigators. Not friends. Not Michael Reeves. Her breath caught. How do you know about Michael? I ignored the question. If anyone calls you again, tell them you want everything in writing, and that your mother is reviewing documents with counsel. But I don't have a lawyer, she said. I do, I replied. As of now. My son's head snapped toward me. Mom, I'll explain later, I mouthed. Mom, my daughter said again, her voice trembling. Are you saying I'm in trouble? I closed my eyes for a brief moment. I'm saying someone wants it to look like you are. The silence on the line stretched. Did I do something wrong? She asked quietly. That question nearly broke me. No, I said firmly. You trusted people you shouldn't have. That's not a crime. She exhaled shakily. They asked me about your signature. My heart skipped. What about it? They said it matches authorizations on file, she said. Mom, they think you approved the transfers. I felt the room tilt. That's impossible, my son muttered. I know, I said. Which means those documents are forged. My daughter's voice dropped. Mom? They asked if I helped you sign anything. I straightened, and I said no, she replied quickly. I swear, Mom, I never signed for you. I never would. I believe you, I said instantly. And that matters more than anything. There was a knock at my door. 3 sharp raps. My son froze. Did you invite someone? I shook my head slowly. Another knock, louder this time. Mrs. Brooks, a man's voice called from outside. Insurance compliance. We just want to ask a few questions. My daughter gasped on the phone. Mom, stay where you are, I said into the phone. And don't say anything else to anyone. I hung up and looked at my son. They're here, I said. He swallowed. What do we do? I glanced at the folder on the table. The sticky note, the screenshots we'd taken, the messages on my phone. We don't run, I said. And we don't lie. I walked toward the door, my heart pounding, but my steps steady, because if they thought they could intimidate me into silence, they were about to learn how wrong they were. I opened the door just enough to see 2 people standing on my porch. A man in a gray suit, late 40s, professional smile fixed too tightly on his face. Beside him, a woman holding a tablet. Her eyes already scanning past me into my house like she expected to see something incriminating on the walls. Mrs. Brooks, the man said, I'm Daniel Porter from Insurance Compliance. This is my associate, Karen. I didn't schedule a visit, I replied. He smiled again. This won't take long. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. If you have questions, I said evenly, you can ask them here. His smile faltered for half a second. Of course, he said. We're just trying to clarify a few inconsistencies regarding the payout from your husband's policy. Inconsistencies created by your company, I said. Karen glanced at her tablet. We have documentation suggesting you approved an alternate distribution. I didn't, I replied. Daniel nodded sympathetically. Memory issues are common during grief. That did it. My memory is just fine, I said. What I'm questioning is how internal approvals were granted. Using a signature that isn't mine. Karen looked up sharply. Daniel cleared his throat. Mrs. Brooks, if you're implying internal misconduct, I'm implying fraud, I said. And I've already been contacted by a state investigator. Both of them stiffened. Karen's fingers paused mid-scroll. Daniel recovered quickly. Then you understand why we need to cooperate. I understand why you're nervous, I replied. He smiled thinly. We're simply following procedure. Then you won't mind if my attorney handles further communication, I said. Karen blinked. Your attorney? Yes, I replied. And before you ask, no, you're not coming inside. Daniel's smile disappeared completely. We can escalate this, he warned quietly. So can I said. There was a long moment where none of us spoke. Finally, Karen cleared her throat. We'll be in touch. I'm sure you will, I said. They turned and walked back to their car without another word. I went inside, locked the door, and leaned against it, my knees suddenly weak. My son exhaled sharply. Mom, that was incredible. It wasn't bravery, I said. It was necessity. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number, but the tone was different. Asterisk, asterisk, you should stop involving your son. Asterisk, asterisk. My blood went cold. They know, I whispered. My son looked at me. Know what? That I'm not alone anymore, I said. And they don't like it. I opened the folder again and pulled out the document I hadn't shown him yet. What's that? He asked. A secondary payout summary, I replied. It wasn't in the main packet. I pointed to a line near the bottom. Contingency transfer pending. And look who approved it, I said. My son leaned in. There, clear as day, were two names. Michael Reeves and Daniel Porter. My son's face went pale. They're working together, he said. Yes, I replied, and they're scrambling. My phone rang again. This time, the number was blocked. I answered. Mrs. Brooks, a calm male voice said, you're making things very difficult. Good, I replied. There was a pause. Meet me tonight, he said, alone, and we can fix this. I smiled, though my hands were shaking. Send the address, I said, because now, the trap was finally visible, and it was time to turn it around. The address came through 10 seconds later. No name. No explanation. Just a location and a time. 8:30 p.m., Harborview Office Park. I stared at the screen, my reflection faintly visible in the glass. 64 years old, gray hair pulled back. Eyes that had seen grief and joy, and now something sharper. They want you alone, my son said. Yes, I replied. Because they think that's when I'm weakest. He shook his head. This is a bad idea. It's a necessary one, I said. They're already circling. If I don't show up, they'll escalate. I didn't tell him I was afraid. Fear was a given now, like breathing. What mattered was control. At 8:15, I drove myself. The office park was nearly empty when I arrived. Rows of darkened buildings. A few security lights buzzing softly. The address led me to a low concrete structure with tinted windows and a single car parked out front. Michael Reeves' SUV. I parked 2 spaces away and sat for a moment, steadying myself. Then I got out. Inside, the building smelled like stale coffee and carpet cleaner. One light was on at the end of the hallway. I followed it. Michael was waiting in a small conference room. Jacket off, sleeves rolled up. Leaning against the table like this was a casual meeting between colleagues. You shouldn't have brought anyone, he said without greeting. I didn't, I replied. He smiled faintly. Good. Why am I here? I asked. He gestured to a chair. I didn't sit. Because this situation has become inefficient, he said. And inefficiency attracts attention. You redirected my husband's life insurance payout, I said. That's not inefficiency. That's theft. His smile faded. Careful. I'm done being careful, I replied. He sighed, like I was a difficult client. Mrs. Brooks, your daughter made this possible. My jaw tightened. She trusted the wrong people. So did you, he said calmly. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, he continued, are copies of authorization records, emails, approvals, everything needed to show that you instructed the payout adjustments. I didn't open it. You can make this go away, he said, quietly. Sign a statement acknowledging a misunderstanding. The funds will be partially restored. Partially, I repeated. Enough to avoid charges, he said. For you? Not necessarily for your daughter. My heart hammered. You're threatening my child. I'm offering you a choice, he corrected. I looked at him steadily. You already made one mistake. His eyebrow lifted. Which was? Assuming I came here unprepared, I said. His phone buzzed on the table. Once. Twice. Then again. He glanced at it, frowning. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he picked it up, read something, and his face changed. Just slightly. Concern replaced confidence. Because while Michael Reeves thought he was controlling the narrative, someone else had just stepped into the room. And this time, it wasn't me walking into a trap. It was him. Michael's phone buzzed again. He silenced it too quickly. Who is it? I asked. Work, he said flatly. This won't take long. You already said that, I replied. He straightened, sliding the folder closer to me. Mrs. Brooks, you're not seeing the full picture. This system works because everyone benefits. Everyone? I asked. My husband is dead. My daughter is being questioned by investigators, and I'm being threatened. He didn't flinch. Temporary discomfort. I let out a short laugh. You talk like this is a spreadsheet. He leaned forward. And you talk like someone who doesn't understand leverage. Before I could respond, the conference room door opened. Daniel Porter stepped in. No smile this time. No professional charm. He glanced at me, then at Michael. We need to stop. Michael's jaw tightened. Not now. Daniel lowered his voice. Compliance flagged the contingency transfer. Someone outside the department pulled the audit trail. My pulse jumped. Michael turned sharply. Who? Daniel hesitated. State Fraud Unit, an external reviewer. Michael swore under his breath. So much for being invisible, I said. He rounded on me. What did you do? I listened, I replied. And I documented. Daniel looked between us. She recorded this meeting, didn't she? Michael's eyes snapped back to me. I met his gaze calmly. Do you really want to find out? Silence stretched. Then Michael laughed sharp, humorless. You think a recording saves you? I think it complicates your story, I said. Daniel rubbed his forehead. This is spiraling. The daughter, the investigator. Now this. Michael turned to me again. You should have taken the deal. And you should have picked a different family, I replied. He stepped closer. You don't walk away from this. That's where you're wrong, I said. I reached into my purse not for a phone, not for papers, but for my keys. I'm leaving, I said. If you contact me again, my attorney and the state investigator will hear about this conversation in full. Daniel looked panicked. Michael. Enough, Michael snapped. I walked past them toward the door. Behind me, Daniel said quietly, she's not bluffing. I didn't look back. Outside, the night air felt sharp and clean. I sat in my car for a moment, hands trembling, then started the engine. My phone buzzed. A message from my son. Mom, state investigator called. Wants to meet tomorrow morning? Says things just changed. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Because if things had changed, it meant someone had made a mistake, and mistakes were how this finally ended. The meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. State offices, downtown official. That alone told me this was no longer a quiet compliance issue being pushed around by middlemen. Whatever Michael and Daniel had been hiding had surfaced. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw signatures that weren't mine. Transfers I'd never approved. My daughter's voice asking if she'd done something wrong. And Michael's calm, almost bored confidence as he slid that folder toward me. People like him didn't panic unless something truly threatened them. At exactly 8:55, my son and I walked into the State Fraud Unit office. Detective Laura Chen was waiting. She didn't offer coffee. She didn't make small talk. She closed the door and placed a thick file on the table between us. "Mrs. Brooks," she said, "I owe you an apology." I sat very still. "For what?" "For assuming you were part of this," she replied. "We had documents that pointed in your direction. Clean, convincing, too convincing." She opened the file. Inside were screenshots, internal emails, some I recognized, some I didn't. "Last night," she continued, "we received an anonymous data drop, audit trails, internal approval logs, metadata showing where and when certain authorizations were created." My pulse quickened. "From whom?" She met my eyes. "Someone who realized the story was about to collapse. Michael, the signatures on your payout authorizations were forged," she said. "Digitally replicated from archived samples. The approvals were routed through internal reviewer accounts Michael Reeves. Account among them." My son exhaled sharply. "And Daniel Porter?" I asked. "Facilitated," she said. "Handled compliance shielding, slowed audits, redirected flags." She slid another document across the table. "Here's the important part," she said. "The transfers into the holding account didn't end there." I scanned the page. Multiple accounts. Shell entities. Layered distributions. "This isn't a single policy theft," my son said quietly. "No," Detective Chen replied. "It's a pattern." She leaned back. "Your husband's policy was targeted because it was clean, large, recent, and because your daughter's access made it easy to build plausible deniability." I closed my eyes briefly. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "we move forward with warrants." She stood. "Michael Reeves and Daniel Porter will be taken into custody today," she said. "And your daughter's name will be formally cleared." My chest tightened. "And me?" She gave a small, genuine smile. "You're no longer a suspect." The weight that lifted then was so heavy I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying it. As we stood to leave, Detective Chen paused. "One more thing," she said. "You did the right thing by not confronting them publicly." "By waiting?" I nodded. At my age, I'd learned something important. When people think you're powerless, they talk too much. And when they talk, they make mistakes. The calls started before noon. One from an unknown number. Two from blocked lines. Then an email marked *urgent* from an address I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. By the time the news broke internally, Michael Reeves and Daniel Porter were already being escorted out of their offices. Detective Chen had warned me it would happen fast, once warrants are signed. The system moves with a speed it never shows ordinary people. My daughter came over that afternoon. She looked smaller than usual. Not physically like someone who'd been holding their breath for days, and was finally letting it out. "They told me it's over," she said as soon as she stepped inside. "That I'm cleared." I pulled her into a hug and held her longer than she expected. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "I should have asked more questions. I should have." "You trusted," I said. "That's not a crime. That's being human." She sat at the dining table, the same table where I'd spread out the paperwork. days earlier and stared at the empty surface. They almost convinced me it was you, she admitted quietly. That you'd approved everything and forgotten. That grief had. She stopped herself. I reached across the table and took her hand. People like them rely on fear. Fear makes people doubt what they know in their bones. She nodded. Michael called me last night. My head snapped up. What did he say? That things were getting messy, she said. That I should stick to the story. That Mom had insisted on handling everything herself. My jaw tightened. And you? I told him I wanted everything in writing, she said. Like you told me. Good, I thought. Very good. By evening, the official notices arrived. Emails from the insurance company. Formal letters. Apologies wrapped in corporate language. But one message stood out. A voicemail. I listened to it alone. Mrs. Brooks, Michael's voice said, stripped of confidence now. There's been a misunderstanding. I think we should talk. Just us, I can explain. I deleted it. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Because explanations from people like him only serve one purpose: to pull you back into their orbit. Later that night, my son stopped by. Mom, he said, Detective Chen called. She wanted me to tell you something. I looked up what she said. The audit uncovered at least 6 other policies handled the same way, he replied. Different families, different stories, same signatures. I felt a chill. And one of those families never questioned it, he said. They accepted the blame. Someone went to jail. The room went quiet. That's why this mattered, I said softly. Not just for us. He nodded. Before he left, he paused at the door. You know, they thought you'd panic. I smiled faintly. That's the problem with underestimating women who've already survived the worst. I turned off the lights and stood in the quiet of my home. The storm had passed, but the lesson stayed. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. The house felt different the next morning. Not quieter. The kind of stillness that comes after a long storm when you realize nothing else is about to break. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, sunlight spilling across the floor, when my phone buzzed one last time with a notification I didn't ignore. Claim status, approved, full disbursement released. No conditions. No reviews pending. No signatures required. Just facts. An hour later, the official letter arrived by courier. Thick paper. State seal. Formal apology from the insurance company and a separate notice from the fraud division confirming, in writing, that **** all responsibility had been reassigned ****. Michael Reeves, Daniel Porter, and others whose names I didn't recognize but whose signatures now meant something very different. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. My daughter came by in the afternoon. This time, smiling, not the careful smile of someone testing the ground, but a real one. They froze his accounts, she said. Michael's and Daniel's. I nodded good. She hesitated. Mom, why didn't you tell me everything from the start? I thought about that. Because, I said slowly, I needed to know who you were when you were scared. And I needed you to see who they were when they thought they were safe. She swallowed. I almost believed them. So did they, I said gently. We sat together in silence. Later that evening, my son joined us for dinner. Nothing fancy. Soup, bread, familiar food. The kind you eat when you're grateful to still be sitting at the same table. You know, he said, the detective told me something interesting. I looked up. She said most fraud cases don't fall apart because of evidence, he continued. They fall apart because someone stays calm longer than the liar expects. I smiled into my tea. Before they left, my daughter hugged me tight. I didn't know you were like this, she whispered. I kissed her hair. Neither did they. That night, I walked through my home, the one my husband and I had built together. I touched the doorway he'd measured himself. The shelf he insisted was level. The quiet corners filled with memory. They'd tried to turn that life into paperwork, into a signature, into a story where I was careless, confused, weak. But here's the truth, they never learned. Women my age don't break easily. We've already survived the things that were supposed to destroy us. We don't need revenge. We don't need noise. We just need time and the patience to let people reveal who they really are. And when they do, we don't argue. We let the truth do the talking. The end. If you stayed until now, thank you for listening. And if you've ever been underestimated, remember this. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's strategy.